and welcome to Friday Night Drinks, Mills and Boone. Today we're with Nadine Gonzalez, writer for our Desire line. And so welcome, it's lovely to see you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Becky.
Oh no, that's great. It's been so exciting. Nadine and I have recently been sort of talking and brainstorming on projects, and we just thought it was perfect to introduce you and your fantastic stories to more sort of UK readers. So I'm going to kick off by obviously asking you sort of, you write for our Desire line, which, and as everyone knows, in Mills and Boone, the different series have different sort of qualities and different styles. And so what could people sort of expect from your sort of romance stories?
My romance stories are very contemporary. I'm sort of a modern girl in the world that we live in. I try to recreate faithfully the world that we live in today and the issues that we have, but they're also fun and just sort of like glamorous escapes for people who want to take a little time out of their day and have like a fun adventure. That's what I hope that the readers will get out of it.
Oh, absolutely. I would say definitely. I've recently read What Happens in Miami, and I absolutely love that. Pure escapism. I can pretend that I live in Miami and have a boat.
I'm pretending too. So I live in Miami, but there's no boats, and not in my backyard. And it's fun to make believe though, and these stories live in my imagination. So I'm glad as an adult I get to write them and sell them and share them with people. Like as a child, growing up as a teenager, I was just daydreaming all the time. So this is the product of that.
Oh wow, that's quite interesting actually, because I was going to ask you sort of where you get your inspiration from. We talk to sort of different authors all the time, and often I think people that want to write, especially for Mills and Boone, think they have to sit down at a computer and think up a story and write it out. And I think it's always really important to people who aspire to write, especially romance, to understand sort of where different authors get their sort of inspiration from. I mean, do you walk down the street eavesdropping on people's conversations?
I do, but mostly I think I get my inspiration from film. Like I would watch a movie or a TV show and think, oh, like I could have, it's kind of arrogant, but I could have done a better job. I could have done a better job at it. I'm really just spinning off different endings and character arcs for what I liked and picking it apart. I guess I need the visual medium. It helps to see it play out in front of you. And then you're like, oh, then you figure out like these are just writers in a room who came up with these characters and did it. So you can always move them around and switch it out and make it yours. And from there springs the idea of a whole new story. So I think I think it came from a childhood of watching a lot of TV, I guess, and and just daydreaming and thinking, oh, I think they did this character wrong, and this is how they should have done it better.
That's a great way to do it, to sort of like take something and make it better.
Yeah. And at first I thought, well, is it that I didn't enjoy the movie? No. And now I realize, no, I love it a lot. They inspired me. It's not that I didn't appreciate what I saw or the film. It's that I liked it so much that it inspired me to, to rethink it or reimagine it. And that's the mark of something good. Like we're sparking.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think it's what people do. I mean, I don't think people often will do this when you get to the end of a book or a film, and you then the credits roll on a happy ever after, and you don't just sort of turn the film off and sort of say that's it, the end. You go away thinking what happens next and create it. So I think everyone's got that ability to sort of take an idea and create it.
Yeah, you don't have to, especially if you're trying to find an idea I had that problem too. I would like go to workshops and stuff thinking like, but how do I make a plot and how do I write a story? But the truth is, you just don't undervalue the stories that come naturally to you, that you probably already have an idea, but you're thinking it has to be better or more impressive for it to be a book. And really, if you just watch a movie or read a book, sometimes they're very simple ideas, simple storylines. Not everything is the Da Vinci Code. Like some things are just very simple, and all you have to do is make it your own.
Yeah, well, I think, well, I mean, like I said, we've had a few sort of video calls because of COVID where we've been brainstorming on projects, and I absolutely love how you think, because we will be talking about something and 10 minutes later this whole idea has been created because you sort of talk it through.
Yeah.
And it's, for me, it's absolutely fascinating watching how you take an idea and sort of it evolves through sort of chat and conversation. So that's really interesting to know. I mean, you said you've watched lots of films. Do you have a favorite film, favorite romance hero?
Yeah, my favorite film, and I'm picking this one. I have many, of course, but I'm picking this one because it tags into this What Happens in Miami, the latest for Harlequin Desire, and Mills and Boone. But I can watch this movie like 100 times. It's the Thomas Crown Affair remake with Rene Russo and Pierce Brosnan, and it's set in New York City. And Pierce is playing like a gentleman thief who just because he's bored is stealing really important artwork and tricking the authorities and then putting it back. And Rene Russo is hunting him down. But Rene is so glamorous and mature about the whole thing. Like, she's a woman and she's not at all shy or timid about who she is. She's so smart. And I saw that movie and think, oh my God, if I could only have half the poise of Rene Russo in that film. And she had that great red hair. She was just great. And that movie always stayed with me. It has that glamour that it starts in New York City, then they fly down to the Caribbean, and then they're all over they're just globe trotting. And I like that aspect too, like the adventure of it all. We're traveling, we're having extraordinary adventures, and we have this really passionate romance between the main characters, and it ends well. So
I have seen that film. I love that film. It's great, and if anyone hasn't, it is worth watching.
Yes, it's worth streaming or finding it somewhere. It's really nice.
It must be somewhere.
Yeah.
Streaming channels you can now get. It's got to be somewhere.
Google it, find it. It's great.
Yeah, but that then obviously you mentioned that What Happens in Miami, which again I have to say I loved it. I loved the characters. I loved Angel. Yeah. I thought she was just great. And how can you for people that haven't read it yet, what did you most enjoy about writing it, and tell us a bit, without giving away any spoilers, tell us a bit about it.
Okay, so piggybacking off the Thomas Crown Affair that I loved, I wanted to write a book set in the art world and to adapt that into my life. Like, that's just sort of one way to do it. There is no great Met Museum or, here in Miami, but we have Art Basel once a year. And an international crowd arrives and they have this big fancy art show, and it attracts a whole lot of celebrities. And so that was already there, and I didn't have to make that up. So, the celebrity, the hero, is based on Leonardo DiCaprio, who very famously comes every year and parties and has the best time, like the best time, and then takes off on his private jet. And there are stories about it in newspapers and stuff, and all what he gets up to. And I thought, oh, okay. When I saw that in my research, I sent it to my editor and I said, listen, look, this is the blueprint for Alessandro. He's an actor, well respected, and he has a foot in the art world, and he comes in to party and enjoy the show. and meets up with a young gallerist. That's another important part of Art Basel, the young, stylish gallerist, like head to toe designer and from all over the world. And it's a fashion show right there in Miami Beach. It really is. They're all outdoing each other. And so I just wanted to put those two types of characters together and see how it would be, because they're on very different spectrums. There's the Hollywood star who comes to party, he's auctioning off paintings and stuff, but there's the gallerist who that's her job and that's also her time to shine, and she's there to work and work hard. Like that week must be very grueling hard work for them. And if they meet, like, how do they intersect? What did they talk about? It was also my chance to put in a little mystery in it. I kind of want to go off in that direction where you can add a sort of a mystery to romance and see how that kind of opens it up a little bit.
And how do you think mystery goes well with romance? Because it's something I do. I think it adds sort of another level, sort of layer of tension, but it's not always seen. It's often sort of like the heroes range, which are the sort of the thrillers and a bit of mystery, but it's not always seen in sort of more traditional romance. It probably should be.
It should be, because I think that anything that you add to the traditional romance, then it can take anything, and anything that you add to it just makes it a little bit more spicy. So definitely yes. And just last week I read a review of a reader review on Goodreads for this book, and they said, like, I didn't see the mystery coming, like I didn't see the ending coming. And I was so proud of that, because that's like the hardest thing. I thought everyone would figure it out, but like that is the hardest thing. And I definitely, for me in the future, I would like to go into that direction, to add an element of mystery to the contemporary romances that I write, to give it a little dimension, to give it more dimension.
Oh, that's good. So why sort of next sort of question is to find out a bit more about how you became a Mills and Boon Harlequin author, and sort of why. I mean, it's it's always the question I want to ask people is, why the series that you've chosen? Why Desire? Had you read lots of Desire beforehand, or was it just sort of Mills and Boon romances in general that you wanted to write?
I did read, like growing up, I did find a lot of Mills and Boon's books just lying around. Like everybody had old copies everywhere. And then so I began reading them indiscriminately, and then slowly, gradually going towards the modern ones, because that's my sensibility, the contemporary ones, which was always Desire in some, maybe under a different name, like over the years, it changed names some, but it was pretty much the Desire sensibility, which was modern. And not only that, the Harlequin Presents, of course. So those were the ones that I read a whole lot of. But then when it came time to submit, I did narrow it down to where's my perfect match? And because Desire has a lot of high luxury elements to it, I thought, okay, and they're set in the US and with a lot of high luxury elements. And at the time, when I first started out writing, I wanted to write about luxury real estate in Miami. So that was the world that I created: high-end luxury real estate agents, people buying penthouses, selling house, all this. And that was sort of like the avenue that best fit me. And so I think for anyone trying to submit to Harlequin and the lines, you really do have to read each description and just be honest and say, okay, this is where I have the best chance to fit in, and not try to write a book and then like squeeze in a manuscript in an area where it probably wouldn't be welcomed. That there's so many different categories that you can probably find one that suits your manuscript best.
Yeah. That is good advice to read around. We always say to people to read around the series, because they all have their unique elements.
You do.
And so when did you decide you wanted to be an author? Have you always wanted to be that, or is it something that just sort of came one day?
When, I was always a creative person, but at first the first thing that ever attracted me was fashion. I told everyone as a kid, I'm going to be a fashion designer. And then I just didn't realize, like, I didn't have any creative ideas in that arena. I just liked pretty clothes. That's not enough to become an actual designer. And but I was always, like I said, daydreaming, and I just thought that was me passing the time. And one day, I have to say that a teacher, I wrote a little story for a school assignment, and a teacher wrote on the page, "You are a good writer." And it kind of just lit up this thing, because I was having a little midlife crisis at age 10. I was like, where's my talent? Who am I? What do I want to be?
Oh.
And so the teacher's putting that in writing and handing it to me, and giving me a high mark on it, sort of opened my eyes to, oh, maybe this, because it's not obvious. Writing is not an obvious talent. If you have a child that they're very active, you just put them into football, or a graceful daughter, you just ease her into ballet classes, but there's no like writing school for little kids. So you're kind of left wondering what this is. I just didn't know that my liking stories and reimagining stories in the car as we're commuting to school translated into a talent in writing books. It took a while for me to connect the two.
Oh, that's really interesting. It's I always wanted to be a writer. I was told everyone I was going to be a writer, but didn't know actually what I wanted to write. I think I had visions of being an investigative journalist. It's not me. And sort of one of the other things I was going to talk to you about, because is we've met because of a sort of project we're working on, and part of that project was the Love to Write competition, where you are going to be a judge with me. And for anyone who doesn't know, the Love to Write competition was a Mills and Boon competition set up. It's just closed, to find aspiring authors for the Mills and Boon lines, from underrepresented backgrounds. And we've had so many fantastic submissions. I think we're going to be busy. What do you, and one of the things, we consider it important. We're always at Mills and Boon looking for people. The most important thing is sort of having good stories. There are so many wonderful stories out there. And I think often the biggest barrier is people think that their story it's not good enough, or they wouldn't ever get it published, so why try? And so we've run a couple of competitions to encourage people. And I did sort of want to know what you think of these competitions. Do you think they're important to try and get people who don't necessarily have the opportunities or the doors opening for them easily to get into writing?
I do. I think that the idea of trying to find an agent is so discouraging and daunting when you consider approaching a publishing house, that you're not even thinking about the publishing house. You're thinking about an agent. How do I get an agent to even get my foot through the door? So that's one of the hurdles. And if you have the opportunity to just submit in an open forum and have someone read your work and maybe get a little feedback, even if you don't win. But I do think that it just relaxes you to think, okay, I can do this. I can submit to a contest. That's no big deal. And it's less pressure. It's less daunting. Another thing with the contest is, like, I won back when I was aspiring writing, I won a pitch contest where all you had to do was pitch your book in 3 sentences. And that pitch was a winning pitch, and it was a literary agency. They read the full manuscript. That was the prize, that they would read it. And they gave me their honest opinion. And they didn't pick me up as a client, but they gave me really good feedback on what to do to fix it, and maybe also to focus it, because it lacked focus. And that's where the idea to write romance actually started, because they were like, it's a romance, it's not, it's like, what is it? And then I thought, oh, well, maybe I should just make it a romance if that's what it is at its heart, you know, like, why am I playing around with it? So there's so much to learn about writing, and maybe through a contest, even if you're not the winner, but if you could come away with some information, maybe that's helpful on your journey.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think you've made a really good point, is that there's less pressure than submitting and waiting sort of anxiously. And it must be difficult, because sort of on the other side, publishers, you know, if there's something that they can't publish, but they don't want to discourage people. And I think one of the things that we always say, and I think is so important, whether you agree, that sort of to take criticism sort of constructively, and if you don't get published, don't ever give up, because just because book 1 isn't right doesn't mean that book 2 might not be perfect. Like you said, your first written book didn't get published, but it helped you hugely on your sort of journey to become an author.
Yeah, like the one thing I'd like to tell people is it takes such a long time. Don't ever say, I'm going to be published in 5 years, or I'm going to be published by this age. It won't happen, maybe, and then you'll give up, because publishing takes such a long time to get all those ducks in a row. I find it's almost, and it requires almost a miracle too. So it takes a long time. And if you can just take the element out of it and say, I want to get published, I want to be a published author. When it happens, and I'm just working toward it, and take all the professional criticism that you can get really seriously, and apply it to your book, and maybe put aside the first book and then write a second one, because you also need to develop your voice, and that'll be very helpful, usually helpful in that too.
Yeah. How important do you think it is for people to find their voice to sort of in writing? And it's something that we always say, you know, it comes through when you read a book. And I think that's the thing, is we read manuscripts as it, you know, will it be a great book? You know, can we see this published? And if there's a strong voice in it, it comes across. But again, it's one of those things that takes time to develop and sort of understand.
When I try to, like, I'm not really big on like craft books and stuff. So I read books, and I read acclaimed books to see, like, oh, if everyone is saying this is the book of the year, then I'll read it to see what's in it, this book, that makes it so great. And I find that 9 times out of 10, if a great voice makes up for a whole lot of stuff. Like, the story could just trail off into weird directions, but if the narrator has a strong voice, you will stay and finish and go through the trip with them. So I think that to stand out, the best-selling authors, they stand out, like, you know exactly when you pick up the book, oh, this is so-and-so, right? And you know it. And so to stand out among the sea of competition, I say you really do have to develop your voice. And by developing your voice is just writing a bunch and then reading it out loud. And then if you're cringing and like, oh my God, this is terrible, well, then you know you're off. And then you'll get to a point where if you can read 3 pages of your work and just love it, and everything is tight and the way it's supposed to be, I think then you're landing your jokes, if you have jokes, or, you know, your descriptions are not too long, too short. You just find the rhythm that's right for you. I think it's more about rhythm in the narrative.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you said you read it. Did you find, like, I certainly did during lockdown, that you increased your reading, or did you increase your writing?
Oh, Oh, both. In lockdown, I did both. I borrowed audiobooks from the library, which was easier because they just downloaded on my phone. I didn't have to go and to a store, or I just ordered stuff online on my Kindle. And I did a lot of writing because writing has always been like an escape for me. I've heard writers say like, oh, during lockdown, they were too stressed to write. But I felt like, no, I did want to write because it's nothing great is happening outdoors or for us, right? But in my world, my characters are just living, having the best time. And so it was more fun to just hang out with my characters at that point.
Oh,
that's the nice thing about writing fiction. Like, yeah, we're in the fictional world. Everyone's having a great time, or they're not dealing with what we're dealing, and it was a lot. It was a good escape.
It was. I think everyone did. I certainly increased all of my reading. I daren't look at my credit card bill of all the books. It's so sort of you've got. With your reading, with your writing, you've actually got a book coming soon, The Rebels Return.
Yes. The Rebels Return is my first Texas Cattlemen's Club book. And when I got the offer to write for it's a series, it's a best-selling series. When I got the offer to write for it, I thought, did they meet me? Like, are they confused? I'm not your Texas girl. I don't know anything about cattlemen. I don't know what's happening. And but they said, no, you can do it. And so yeah, my characters are sort of outsiders to this insular world that they have, and they come in and they shake things up a little bit. And but it proved to me that I could do it. Like, it was great. It was almost like a challenge, but it proved to me that I could do it, that the ideas didn't have to be born in my imagination for me to hand in a good book or for me to work on it. So the Texas Cattlemen's Club series is very loved here with Desire. It's a popular series for Desire readers, and they seem very excited every time a new series is announced. So I'm excited to be part of it. But I was also worried that I wouldn't live up to it. But it seems like, I love this book that's coming out. It's going to be good.
It's going to be very good. And I've been told that that was our last question.
Already? Okay.
I know. I said we could go on forever, but no, I just thank you so much for this. Has been, hopefully people have found it really, really useful. I think some of the things you've said certainly will inspire people to write, and I think there's little bits of information that people might not necessarily have known, and to hear how you create is always, well, for me as well, it's always really fascinating hearing how authors sort of create these wonderful things that we then have on our desks. I'm going to show you everyone again these wonderful and so yes, thank you very much, and have a lovely weekend. It's been lovely.
Thank you for having me, Becky. Thanks.
That's all right. I'll speak to you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.